I died and woke up inside a novel as the stepmother of two boys destined to become the most feared villains in the realm. In the original story, the author barely mentioned their early years. Their father perished young and they endured relentless cruelty from their stepmother. That evil stepmother was now me. My two stepsons would grow into monsters. The elder, Marcus Shaw, would become a corrupt minister whose very name made officials tremble. The younger, Daniel Shaw, would lead a band of ruthless outlaws that terrorized entire provinces. The original host married into the Shaw family for one reason alone: their father, Nathan Shaw. He possessed delicate features, refined manners, and a reputation as the most educated man for miles around. The stepmother and I shared the same name, Elena Ming. Previously, Elena lived with her aunt's family where she was treated as an unwanted burden. Her marriage into Birch Village was essentially being sold for spare coins. Just 3 months after the wedding, Nathan fell gravely ill with fever and died, leaving behind 2 small boys. From that day forward, Elena became a terror, beating and starving the children until they were barely alive. When they grew up, their first act was capturing their stepmother, torturing her slowly, and leaving her remains for wild animals. Just imagining that fate made my blood run cold. I stared at the man lying feverish on the bed and at the 2 children huddled fearfully in the corner. A thought struck me. Perhaps I could still change everything. Fortunately, I arrived early. Nathan was not dead yet and I had not harmed the children. My urgent task was saving his life. According to Elena's memories, Nathan's death was utterly preventable. He suffered from chronic illness and weakness, with no money for treatment. All the household funds were clenched tight in Elena's fists. She refused to spend even 1 copper coin. In the end, he simply burned up with fever and passed away. Luckily, I knew exactly where the money was hidden, though I had no intention of wasting it recklessly. Nathan still needed to continue his examination studies and the 2 children needed food and clothes. Whatever could be saved must be saved. In my previous life, I was a military medic with decent skills. I had treated countless injuries and common illnesses. Nathan's condition was actually quite treatable. Just 1 dose of fever remedy could bring down his temperature and save his life. However, fresh herbs picked from the wild could not be used immediately. I had to gather them from the mountains and take them to the village doctor to exchange for processed medicine. Birch Village was surrounded by mountains on 3 sides with dense forests and abundant medicinal plants. Many villagers earned their living gathering herbs, and those who did not would sometimes venture into the mountains to try their luck. I found an old bamboo basket and strapped it to my back. After thinking for a moment, I opened the kitchen cupboard and took out a small cornbread that the original owner had hidden. The 2 children huddled in the corner immediately watched my every move. The younger one, little Daniel, instinctively stepped forward when he saw the food, but he was pulled back firmly by his older brother, Marcus. Marcus's eyes held a mixture of fear and hatred as he looked at me, clearly afraid I would suddenly strike them. I sighed quietly, broke off a piece of the corn to put in my mouth, and placed the rest on the table. "Can you trust it now?" My voice softened, not overly warm, but not as harsh as before. "I am going out to gather medicine. You 2 eat this for now. There is water in the kitchen that I have boiled. Wait for it to cool before drinking. After that, take a clean cloth, wet it, and wipe your father's body from head to toe. Keep wiping until the water warms up." Marcus remained frozen, his suspicious eyes never leaving me. Little Daniel was too young to understand, so I spoke gently to Marcus. "But you are different. If this fever does not break, your father might not survive. Whether you follow my instructions or not is your choice to make." Marcus's eyes dimmed slightly. Even though he was just a child, that look held a calculation that was chilling. He truly was the making of a future corrupt official. He understood after being told just once. The fever remedy required 4 medicinal ingredients. 2 of them were so common that farmers often used them for cooking, and the other 2 were not rare either. I planned to gather some additional valuable herbs to exchange with Dr. Chen in the village to save up for future needs. I followed the narrow path around the mountain base, searching among the thick bushes. Experienced herb gatherers or hunters in the village only dared to venture a little deeper. Rarely did anyone dare to go too far inside. But I was not afraid at all with the skills from my previous life. Even if I encountered a wild animal and could not defeat it, I was fast enough to escape. It was early summer, the weather was mild, the sunlight gentle as silk, the air fresh, and the scent of young grass spread across the mountainside. The mountain base was quite crowded today. Most were villagers, which meant they were acquaintances of the original owner. Right near me was Granny Wang, carrying a basket full of freshly picked wild greens. Seeing me, she paused slightly, her face showing surprise. "Oh, Nathan's wife, are you also going up the mountain?" I casually pulled up a few dandelion plants and tossed them into the bamboo basket on my back, then nodded slightly in greeting. "Yes, I am going up to gather some medicine and ask Dr. Chen to process it for my husband. I am also looking for some wild vegetables for the children." Hearing that, Granny Wang's eyes showed hesitation. I suspected that the reputation of Elena, the wicked woman, had not yet faded from people's minds. She looked at me for a while longer, then sighed, took a handful of green vegetables from her basket, and handed them over. "Take this. As for that grass," she pointed to the spot where I had just pulled the plants, "that is only for pigs. No humans eat that stuff." I smiled slightly, making a mental note. It turned out that people in this village did not know that dandelions were edible and were even a cooling medicine. The wild vegetables around the mountain base had been almost completely picked clean, leaving only this grass growing in large green patches like a carpet. "Thank you. I understand. I will throw it away later." I spoke smoothly, then walked on. "I will go further inside to see what other medicinal herbs can be gathered." My footsteps gradually moved away and the sound of people chatting at the mountain base also receded behind me. I followed the narrow path, pushing aside leaves while picking familiar medicinal herbs. They were basic types, but all very useful. People on the mountain became scarcer, with only a few distant bird calls echoing back. After walking for a while, I encountered 2 hunters carrying bows and arrows heading deeper inside. We nodded in brief greeting, then went our separate ways. From then on, I did not encounter another soul. Along the way, I discovered a few fresh animal tracks. Bending down to observe carefully, I realized from the shape and depth that they were just the tracks of some small wild animals. I casually set up a few simple snares and continued following the trail deeper. Small animals were common in the forest. Rabbits and squirrels ran constantly, swift as the wind, but they did not offer much meat. Fortunately, my hunting skills from when I was in the military had been quite refined. I chose a position downwind and threw my hatchet accurately. In just moments, I had caught 3 rabbits. I put them neatly into the bamboo basket and covered them with wild vegetables and medicinal herbs to hide them. The harvest today was quite good. I planned to return early. Nathan's illness could not be delayed. The 2 children were probably also weak with hunger waiting for me. Unexpectedly, right at that moment, a fierce roar rang out from ahead, mixed with a man's cry for help. I immediately put down the basket, drew my hatchet, and picked up a few pieces of dry wood sharpened at the ends to use as weapons. Guided by the sound, I quickly rushed forward and quietly climbed a tree to observe. The person calling for help was Uncle Jong, the most experienced hunter in the village. At this moment, he was just like me, hiding on a tree branch. However, the tree he chose was too small and was being continuously rammed by a massive wild boar below. It was about to break. According to the memories from the story, the 2 children were later saved by Uncle Jong, and when they grew up, they repaid his kindness. Thinking of this, I could not stand by and watch. Observing closely, I realized the wild boar was heavily injured, with one side bleeding and its breathing labored. This was an opportunity not to be missed. I moved along the tree trunks and quietly shifted to another large, sturdier tree. The beast seemed drunk on blood, its vigilance reduced, leaving only the desire to take down the prey in front of it. I aimed precisely at its eye and threw the hatchet with all my strength. A dull thud sounded as the blade embedded itself into the boar's head. It roared madly and turned towards me. Uncle Jong recognized me at this moment and shouted in surprise. "Oh, Nathan's wife." I pretended to panic, my hands shaking as if I were about to slip off the branch. One hand held tight to the branch, while the other, in a moment of panic, stabbed the sharpened sticks repeatedly into the boar's eyes and mouth. This body was weaker than my previous life, but it still had enough strength. The wild boar howled miserably, struggled violently, and then completely lost control. Uncle Jong took that opportunity to slide down, picked up his hunting knife that had fallen on the ground, and coordinated with me to deal the final blow. Before long, the giant beast lay completely still, its blood staining half the ground red. When Uncle Jong and I dragged that massive wild boar back to the village, the whole village was in an uproar. It had been many years since anyone had hunted such a large animal. Uncle Jong was honest by nature. He told everyone he met that I had saved his life and insisted on giving me the entire pig, only keeping the skin as a souvenir. I understood that displaying too much wealth invites jealousy. So, I smiled and refused, only accepting half of the meat, telling him to bring my share to the house after butchering it. Once that was done, I immediately went to Dr. Chen's house to exchange the medicine. A basket full of medicinal herbs only exchanged for 3 doses of fever remedy and 3 large copper coins, but that amount was enough to save a life. When I returned, it was already late afternoon. The 2 children were sitting huddled by the door, their stomachs hollow and eyes glazed from hunger, but they still did not dare to come near me. I ignored them and went to check on Nathan first, placing my hand on his forehead. It was still burning hot. That made sense. I had told Marcus to wipe his body to lower the fever somewhat, but to bring it down completely, he had to take medicine. I took some mineral powder I had borrowed from a villager along the way and a little rice from the house. Combined with the medicine Dr. Chen prepared, I made 3 doses of fever remedy, then went into the kitchen to brew it. A small noise came from the kitchen door. Daniel carefully poked his head in to look. Seeing that I had discovered him, he whispered softly, "Mother." After all, he was only 3 years old, still understanding nothing and did not know how to hate anyone yet. He was not like Marcus, who was 6 years old and already knew that the original owner had treated them poorly. I thought for a moment and then called out, "Daniel, go call your big brother here." Before long, Marcus arrived, standing at the door with eyes full of suspicion. I did not explain. What the original owner did was not my fault, but these 2 children were truly pitiful, so I could only let time prove things. "This is the medicine I exchanged with Dr. Chen. You watch it and stir it evenly. If it burns, it cannot be used." A light flashed in Marcus's eyes, then turned back to doubt. I sighed and added, "It is brewed for your father. Go on, I still have to cook. I have been busy since morning, and I am hungry too." I butchered the 3 rabbits, planning to take the skins to Hunter Jong later for processing. By winter, they could be made into a pair of gloves. 1 rabbit was used for cooking. The other 2 were hung in the attic to dry, intended as provisions for later. The rice jar only had enough left for 3 meals, while the corn flour jar was somewhat better off. Aside from that, there was a bit of wheat flour the original owner had hidden for herself. The money pouch the original owner hid also contained only 350 coins, not enough to pay for Nathan's medicine. Nathan needed to study. The family had 3 acres of good land that we hired people to farm. But after paying wages each harvest, the income was barely enough to cover expenses. Before falling ill with the fever, Nathan had intended to give up studying the classics to stay in the village and open a school to teach children. I cooked the meat while thinking about what to do in the future. The smell of meat gradually spread throughout the kitchen. A gurgling sound rang out. I turned my head to see Daniel staring with wide eyes, then embarrassedly lowering his head. The 2 brothers, Marcus and Daniel, both inherited their father's good looks. Although they were thin and weak from hunger all year round, they were still more handsome than the other children in the village. I did not understand how the original owner could bear to be so heartless. "Hungry?" I crooked my finger. "Come here." Marcus was immediately vigilant, but did not dare to leave the medicine pot, his face full of conflict. Daniel looked at his brother and then walked over to me. I gently pinched his cheek. "Wait a bit. It is not ready yet." Daniel seemed not to expect that he would also get to eat and smiled with rare innocence. Marcus remained on guard when the smell of white rice wafted through the kitchen. The pot of medicine was also just finished brewing. Knowing Marcus still did not truly trust me, I told him to take the medicine to his father himself. I only stood by to observe, and once I saw him handle everything properly, I felt reassured enough to return to the kitchen. Daniel no longer feared me as much and kept chattering while following me. I scooped out the meat, added the wild vegetables Granny Wang had given me to blanch in the meat broth, and then took them out, making it count as 2 extra dishes. Daniel looked at me, his eyes shining brightly, filled with longing. I picked up a piece of meat for him. Even though he was starving, he chewed very slowly. Clearly, Nathan had raised the children carefully. "Mother, it is delicious. Go to the room," I said. "Mother will bring the food in so we can eat together." Daniel nodded and ran off happily. I carried the rice and soup inside and saw that Marcus had finished giving his father the medicine and was now sitting quietly by the bed. Seeing me enter, he let out a soft sigh of relief, as if a heavy stone had been lifted from his heart. Although he was still just a child, after years of being treated coldly, he was used to living in fear, afraid that I would abandon the brothers and leave. I waved my hand. "Come here and eat." He glanced at Nathan, then sat down at the table. He seemed about to say something, but stopped. "Your father just took his medicine. Let it work. You eat first." Little Daniel sat obediently beside him, tugging at his brother's sleeve. His voice was childish and sweet. "Big brother, mother's cooking is delicious. Go ahead and eat." Marcus rubbed his younger brother's head and looked up at me. I simply nodded slightly, and only then did he pick up his chopsticks. The 2 brothers ate with great restraint, chewing carefully and swallowing slowly. Their manners were so polite that I secretly nodded in approval. When they put down their chopsticks and wanted to clean up, I stopped them. "Wait a moment. I have something to say." A look of caution flashed in Marcus's eyes, as if to say he knew nothing good would come of this. I did not mind and continued calmly. "You are still young. I do not expect you to immediately treat me as family. But as long as I am your mother for even one day, I will definitely protect you and ensure you do not suffer from hunger or cold. If later when you grow up, you still do not want me as family, I will not bother you and will leave immediately." That was the path I left for myself. Over the past few days, I had quietly observed these 2 children. They were not bad by nature. Marcus was intelligent and suspicious, but had never harmed anyone. Daniel was innocent and kind. If they became people who terrified others in the future, it would likely be because circumstances forced them. I was willing to change those circumstances for them, but if they did not want it, I would not force it. After I finished speaking, Marcus's stiff body finally relaxed. Little Daniel only half understood and looked around blankly. But Marcus understood everything, perhaps realizing I was truly different from before. When I went into the kitchen to wash the dishes, he followed to help with the chores. I told him to watch the medicine pot, and he nodded eagerly. Just as the kitchen work was done, little Daniel ran in, cheering happily. "Mother, big brother, father is not hot anymore." Hearing that, Marcus immediately looked up, almost dropping the bowl in his hand. I glanced at him and was about to step outside when little Daniel tripped over the threshold and fell with a thud. I hurriedly stepped forward, picked him up, and checked him all over. He was only scraped in a few places, but his clothes, already tattered, now had another large hole. Tears welled up in his eyes as he clutched the torn fabric, looking at me nervously. Marcus also came over, observing my expression while nudging little Daniel, whispering, "Apologize quickly." I stopped him and spoke firmly. "You only need to apologize when you do something wrong. Remember this carefully. If you have not done anything wrong, you do not need to apologize to anyone." Marcus was stunned and looked surprised. I rubbed little Daniel's scraped knee and comforted him gently. "Daniel, does it hurt? In front of your family, you do not have to endure it. If you feel wronged, come to mother. If you want to cry, just cry. If clothes are torn, they can be mended. Do not be afraid." Little Daniel hugged my arm tightly and burst into tears. Marcus muttered, "Is that really okay?" I wiped little Daniel's tears and nodded firmly. Yes. It was the first time little Daniel looked at me so intently. A light gradually appeared in his eyes. He had been both afraid and hurt, but children forget quickly. After crying for a while, he looked at me shyly. I rubbed his head and asked softly, "Is Daniel done crying?" Little Daniel buried his head in my neck in embarrassment. I smiled and continued to hold him. Then let us go see if father has woken up. Marcus ran in first and I followed carrying little Daniel. When we arrived, Marcus was sitting by the bed with a beaming face, which meant there was good news. I touched Nathan's forehead. Indeed, the fever had gone down significantly, and now he was just in a deep sleep. I let out a sigh of relief. It seemed he would not die. Little Daniel hugged my neck and asked, "Why hasn't father woken up yet?" Hearing that, Marcus also looked at me worriedly. "He is just sleeping. He will wake up later. If he hasn't woken up by evening, I will wake him to eat something so he doesn't lose strength." Suddenly, Uncle Jong's loud voice rang out from the yard. "Hey, Nathan's wife, are you home?" I peeked through the window crack and saw Uncle Jong carrying half a massive wild boar weighing over 100 pounds into the yard. So he had brought the meat. I called out, "Uncle Jong, wait a moment. I am coming out right now." After speaking, I patted Marcus's head and smiled mysteriously. "Marcus, come out here. I will show you something interesting." Although Marcus was still cautious, he was a child after all. Being told that, he was moved to follow. Seeing Uncle Jong carrying half a wild boar, he was stunned speechless. I nudged him gently. "Go take a look. We will eat it tonight." Little Daniel cheered. "Mother, I want to see too." Naturally, I followed them out. Uncle Jong stood in the middle of the yard, laughing heartily. "Your mother is not lying. This half-pig belongs to your family." Marcus's eyes went wide, clearly in disbelief. Uncle Jong laughed again, scratching his head as he spoke. "It was your mother who saved me. Otherwise, I would not have this life anymore. It is embarrassing to say, but this pig should count as your mother's catch. Yet she insisted on sharing half with me." Marcus was even more astonished. I just smiled lightly. It was just luck. The pig was already heavily injured by Uncle. I just helped a little. Uncle Jong waved his hand. "If you need help, just say it. Do not be polite. I want to keep a little meat and I will sell the rest for you. You know, Nathan is still taking medicine, and when he recovers, he still has to study. Marcus is also at the age to start school. I need money." I did not mention other reasons. In the countryside, meat was a luxury. Villagers sometimes went a whole month without fresh meat. Keeping half a large wild boar in the house would soon attract thieves. Uncle Jong was an honest man. Hearing this, he sighed with emotion. "It is not easy. All right, you keep some meat to nourish the children, and I will sell the rest for you." I put little Daniel down, took the kitchen knife, cut about 10 pounds of pork belly, and wrapped it carefully. Uncle Jong praised me for knowing how to choose the best cut, then carried the rest away. Marcus hesitated for a while before asking softly, "Can I really go to school?" "Of course, you must study." "Little Daniel too," I replied firmly. A rare look of joy appeared on Marcus's usually calm face. These two children had been taught the basics by Nathan. Little Daniel was still small and just learning to write, while Marcus had already read the classics. I wanted them to read books, understand principles, and distinguish right from wrong, so they would not become people hated by the world or repeat the tragedy in the story. Before dinner, Nathan woke up. The two children were so happy they cried, clinging to their father to tell him everything. I pulled up a chair to sit nearby, listening quietly and occasionally interjecting a few sentences. Through their conversation, I guessed that before Nathan fell ill, the original owner knew how to pretend to be a kind stepmother and had never shown too much cruelty to the children. Perhaps because of that, in Nathan's eyes, the impression of me was not too bad yet. I had no feelings for him, but seeing him awake, I felt a sense of relief. In this ancient society, having a man in the house made many things easier to handle. After exchanging a few words, I stood up and went to the kitchen to prepare dinner. Formerly a military medic, I had no lingering attachments. But there was one thing I always remembered. The taste of delicious meals with kitchen warmth and someone waiting. Now that I had the chance to cook properly, I naturally had to do it well. The cornbread mixed with wheat flour was golden and fragrant. The pot of braised meat from the afternoon was tender and rich. I also took the dandelions picked in the morning and made a cold salad. A delicious meal was laid out before our eyes. Nathan's illness had improved. Although he was still weak, he could get out of bed. Just as he stepped out, he smelled the aroma and paused. I said, "You are still sick. Do not eat too much meat." Little Daniel ran to hug my leg, looking up to ask, "Mother, can I eat a lot?" I rubbed his head. "You should not eat too much either. I am worried about indigestion, but you can eat a little more than your father." Little Daniel immediately smiled radiantly, turned back to help his brother support their father to sit down, and then obediently sat next to Marcus. Nathan asked, "Is this the wild boar meat Uncle Jong brought over?" The two children must have told him while I was busy in the kitchen. I nodded slightly and briefly recounted the incident. Nathan constantly exclaimed, "That was truly dangerous. It is all because I am useless and burdened you." Marcus and little Daniel looked at me, their eyes holding a trace of admiration. It seemed my efforts over the past few days were not in vain. "It does not count as a burden," I smiled. "I believe if it were the children and me who fell ill, you would not ignore us either. Eat now." The two children have been waiting for a long time. Getting to eat meat, they forgot their manners, stuffing their cheeks as they ate, looking incredibly adorable. Nathan maintained his restraint, eating slowly and moderately. Everyone ate that meal with great relish and satisfaction. After eating, I told Nathan to rest while I sat by his bed playing with the children. Unknown to me, little Daniel had fallen asleep in my arms and Marcus was yawning repeatedly, his eyes drooping. Under the pale yellow oil lamp, Nathan's thin but handsome face became gentle and warm. Looking at that scene, I secretly felt lucky. The beginning was miserable, but the present could still be considered good. I carried the two children back to their room, then returned to find Nathan had opened his eyes again. I looked at him with some hesitation, but finally took off my outer coat and lay down on the outer edge of the bed. Nathan held my hand and spoke softly, "I have brought you hardship." I replied lightly, "Then get well soon." Early the next morning, Nathan's body temperature began to rise again. I brewed medicine for him to drink before going to wash my face. Marcus had woken up early and was reading in the main hall, incidentally watching little Daniel practice writing. "Oh my, has my son-in-law woken up?" A shrill voice came from outside the courtyard. I frowned slightly. According to the original owner's memory, the person arriving was Madame Liu, the biological mother of Nathan's late wife. She rarely cared for her daughter and was not good to her two grandsons either, only skilled at throwing tantrums and demanding things. This time she probably heard the news that our family received half a wild boar, so she came to seek some profit. I had no connection to her, nor did I intend to flatter her, but I still had to see the attitude of Nathan and the two children. I turned around and caught Marcus glaring with anger while little Daniel huddled close to his brother in fear. I squatted down slightly and asked gently, "Do you not like her? Did she bully you?" The two of them nodded in unison. I smiled slightly, my voice warm but decisive. "It is fine. I am here now. From now on, she will not dare to touch you again. Things in our house belong to us. She cannot take them even if she wants to. Now you two go inside and do not come out." A light seemed to flash in Marcus's eyes. He nodded vigorously and pulled little Daniel back to their room. I walked leisurely into the yard. Madame Liu was standing in the corner where I dried the rabbit and pork jerky, her sleeves bulging because they were stuffed with items. I approached, my voice cold as winter wind. "Taking without asking is called stealing." She was startled and almost fell, dropping a piece of rabbit meat to the ground with a thud. I bent down to dust it off and put it back in its place, acting as calmly as if nothing had happened. She was embarrassed for a moment, then straightened her back, trying to sound reasonable. "I heard your family got half a wild boar. Share half with me." I held out my hand and smiled faintly. "Where is the money?" Madame Liu glared and shouted, "You dare ask me for money? Do you know who I am?" So it turned into a contest to see who had the louder voice. I lifted my chin slightly, deliberately speaking clearly for the neighbors to hear. "I do not know. I only know you want to take my family's things without paying a single copper coin." She pointed angrily at my face. I immediately slapped her hand down, my voice cold. "You are old, yet you still point at people's faces. Do you not feel ashamed? Laughter rang out softly from inside the house. I knew the two children were secretly watching. This was the lesson I wanted to teach them when meeting a troublemaker. There is no need to argue logic. Just know when to be firm and when to be soft. Madame Liu trembled with rage, unable to say a word. Finally, she pointed to my room and screamed, "My son-in-law is inside." I tilted my head and responded with feigned difficulty. "But I am not your daughter. Do you think you are worthy?" She sneered. "You must give me this half-pig whether you want to or not. I am not going anywhere today. Since I am not worthy, what do you intend to stay for?" Madame Liu huffed coldly and intended to sit on the low stool I used for washing clothes. I immediately kicked it lightly, sending the stool sliding far away. My voice was cold as steel. "My yard is not for outsiders to sit whenever they please." 5 years in the military had forged a calm temperament and a gaze that made others dare not look straight at me. When I stood up straight, my shadow cast over her, and my cold presence made Madame Liu's face turn pale. She trembled, knowing she could not gain the upper hand, so she knelt on the ground, sat right in front of the door, and wailed loudly. "My daughter is dead. My son-in-law is dying. How can I live? The house has so much meat, but won't share it with us. Do you intend to starve us to death?" Neighbors were already curious, and hearing the screams, they gathered to watch. I asked in confusion, "My husband is about to die, yet you have the leisure to think about dividing meat." Madame Liu was choked by my words, so she resorted to unreasonable tactics. "Anyway, today you must give me half. It is natural for a son-in-law to help his mother-in-law, otherwise I will sue you at the magistrate's office." It turned out she was relying on her age, thinking I would not dare beat or scold her. So she became even more shameless. "Then go ahead and sue. I also want to see how the magistrate judges. I heard you are disrespectful to your parents, do not love your children, and only care about yourself. Your son-in-law is lying sick in bed. You do not care. But hearing we have meat, you come to beg and even intend to steal the rabbit meat I worked hard to hunt. I can even countersue you for theft. Moreover, the man lying inside is your son-in-law, and I am not your daughter. Are you planning to sue me? Wait for me to countersue and see who wins." In this region, a lawsuit was as serious as the sky. Madame Liu was stunned when she heard I wanted to countersue. She had always relied on her sharp tongue and aggression to win across 10 miles and 8 villages, making everyone wary. But she and I had no connection. Public opinion could not bind me, and the law did not mandate a son-in-law to support his deceased wife's family. Madame Liu was rendered speechless, her lips trembling. Suddenly, she lunged forward, intending to hit me. I nimbly dodged behind the strongest man standing there watching. "If you want pork, that is fine. Bring money to buy it. My husband is seriously ill and needs money for treatment. You said it is right for him to help you, so it is also right for you to help him. Why don't you spend some money to buy medicine for him?" The neighbors knew Madame Liu's character well, and after watching the scene, they could not bear to see me suffer. Moreover, she was from another village. While many children here were taught by Nathan, a few hot-tempered women immediately pulled Madame Liu back. Madame Liu screamed, "Marcus, Daniel, your grandmother is being bullied. Come out and help me." The two children stepped out. At the same time, Nathan also walked out. He draped a thin blanket over himself, his face pale, walking unsteadily. If I had not looked closely, I would have thought he was truly weak. The ancients were truly clever. Nathan's acting was indeed perfectly natural. The two children, instructed by him beforehand, ran to hug my legs tight and cried loudly. Marcus said, "Mother, father said the house has run out of money. He won't let me go to school anymore and told me to follow grandmother home." Little Daniel also sobbed. "Father said we have to eat less. I will eat less in the future. Mother, I am hungry. Is there any meat left from yesterday?" I looked at Nathan with distress. "Why did you come out? Didn't the doctor say if we don't have enough money for medicine, we have to nurse you carefully ourselves?" Nathan smiled with the elegant demeanor characteristic of a scholar. "I heard my mother-in-law arrived. I wanted to ask when your family will repay the 1 tael of silver you borrowed before. Our family is truly running out of rice. After speaking, he leaned weakly against the door frame, his eyes filled with expectation. Madame Liu's eyes widened. What one tael of silver? You said I borrowed it. You never said you lent anything without expecting return. There is no such thing. The surroundings began to buzz. Truly pitiful getting involved with such a mother-in-law. The future will be long and hard. I heard her family treated her daughter very badly. Who knew that even after the daughter died, she would come to exploit the son-in-law? That is right. Within 10 miles and 8 villages, who doesn't know Madame Liu is shameless? The gossip was not quiet. Madame Liu heard this, her face turning red. She looked around furtively, intending to retreat. I glanced at Marcus to signal him. The boy immediately threw himself at her legs. Grandmother, I want to learn to read. Please raise me. Little Daniel wanted to do the same. Madame Liu never loved the two children and feared being clung to. She coldly blurted out, Grandmother, my foot. Your mother is dead. I have nothing to do with you anymore. I looked at Nathan. He understood, sighed softly, and waved his sleeve to leave. Marcus continued to wail miserably. Speaking is not enough. Who will believe it once said? Marcus and Daniel have your family's blood. I am not their biological mother, and their father is seriously ill. By logic, you must take care of them. Madame Liu panicked and kicked Marcus hard. Write a document right now. I have met many people like you. Do not dream of clinging to me. Marcus, go call your father out here. Tell him your grandmother wants to sever relations. Marcus crawled up, crying even more miserably, dragging his feet into the house. A moment later, he walked out slowly, holding a paper with wet ink, hiding it behind his back. Nathan's sigh echoed from the room. Now the children and I both need money. Only Elena is left as the sole woman in the house. What should we do? Madame Liu trembled, snatched the paper, pressed her red fingerprint on it, threw it back at me, and left straight away. Nathan's handwriting was elegant, and the words on the paper were clear. Madame Liu, on behalf of her maiden family, officially severed all relations with the Shaw family. This was good. Reducing the burden of a group of troublesome relatives meant Marcus's future official career would have fewer entanglements. I held the paper, my eyes relieved. I asked the neighbors to bear witness. From now on, the Shaw family and Nathan's late wife's maiden family are completely cut off. The neighbors voiced their agreement. Do not worry, Nathan's wife. We all witness for you. Everyone saw clearly today that Madame Liu was unreasonable and even abandoned her own grandsons. Truly wicked to the extreme. Late in the afternoon, Uncle Zhong returned from the market and handed me a bag of money. I did not know where he heard about Madame Liu, but as soon as he stepped through the door, before even taking a sip of tea, he started scolding loudly. That Madame Liu is not a good person. It is better not to associate with her. This is a good thing for you. That wicked woman has no humanity at all. If something like this happens again in the future, just come find me. You saved my life, so helping you drive away bad relatives is no big deal. I only regret that I came back too late and missed seeing her make a fool of herself. Nathan and I repeatedly expressed our gratitude. Uncle Zhong originally helped the Shaw family out of respect for Nathan as a scholar who had once taught him to read. However, because Nathan was gentle and kind, they interacted often and became true close friends. Seeing Nathan recover well, he was genuinely happy. Before leaving, he even left a steamed bun, saying it was for the children to satisfy their cravings. After he left, we opened the money bag with great anticipation. Currently, the price of pork was higher than chicken or duck. 1 jin of pork cost 10 copper coins, and wild boar meat was a few coins more expensive. Our piece of wild boar meat weighed over 100 jin and sold for 3 silver taels and 400-odd copper coins. I took out 1 silver tael and said, "This amount is for you to manage your studies. We will keep 1 tael for emergencies and the remaining 400 copper coins will be used to buy some rice and flour. What do you think?" Nathan was a bit surprised as we had previously discussed that he would not study anymore, but I did not think so. In this era, if one wanted to hold their head high, reading books was the best path. Nathan was only 22 years old. He was just held back by family matters, so he still had a chance. I spoke firmly. Only when you pass the scholar examination will the lives of the children and me get better. You must continue studying, and Marcus must also go to school. We have to save every coin. Little Daniel is still young. Can you teach him the basics first? Nathan smiled, turned around, and took out a box from under the bed. Inside the box were 10 silver taels arranged neatly. This was left by my parents, originally intended for Marcus and Daniel. Now I hand it all over to you. You have full authority to arrange it. After speaking, he seemed to want to explain further. Even my mother, I never told. I understood his meaning. His former wife could not withstand her mother threatening suicide all day. If she had known there was money, Madame Liu would have taken it all long ago. And the original owner of this body was unreliable. So it was understandable that he did not feel at ease. I gently pushed this silver box back, feeling relieved in my heart. With this sum of money, the studies of the father and sons were temporarily not a worry. Just let it stay there. I would take it when I need it. Nathan clasped his hands towards me, obeying my wife, then stood up and put the silver box back in its old place. At that moment, I saw a small figure standing at the door for a long time. Marcus, come in. Marcus walked in, his face slightly flushed, followed by the innocent little Daniel. Are you hungry? Marcus shook his head. No, I want to apologize. Apologize for what? I always doubted you, but you always thought of us. When Mother was alive, she never let us eat such delicious meat. Now you even helped us escape from Grandma. There is one more thing, Nathan smiled at me and said. We are a family. We must trust each other. It seemed his illness was truly completely cured. After a few days of rest, Nathan's body had fully recovered. I went up the mountain again and gathered half a basket of wild vegetables. On the way, I found a few types of medicinal herbs, so I picked them to exchange for copper coins at Dr. Chen's house. The temporary snare set last time caught a wild chicken and 2 rabbits. I stuffed everything into the bamboo basket, covered it with wild vegetables, and brought it home. Before leaving, I set up a few more simple traps. These days, our family had meat to eat every day, but the grain was truly running out. It was currently the time between harvests, and families were short on food. No one in the village could exchange rice or flour. I took Nathan and the 2 children to town to buy some rice and wheat flour. Initially, I intended to make a new set of clothes for Marcus and little Daniel, but unexpectedly I was stopped by Marcus. Mother, we are fine wearing this. Everyone dresses like this. Many people do not even bear to change into new clothes for the new year. If we dress differently, people will become suspicious. What he said made sense. I understood everything he said. The people in Birch Village represented the struggling common class of this era, wearing clothes just to cover their bodies and keep warm. If they wanted to change clothes, most would choose old clothes from pawn shops. I just thought the money from selling the wild boar was earned by my hard work, so making the children a little happy would be good. But since Marcus was so sensible, I stopped. I took out a few bits of silver and said, then let us go eat big buns. That day, Uncle Jong left a few buns. Marcus divided them into 4 portions for the whole family to eat together. That flavor was truly unforgettable. Marcus smiled expectantly and little Daniel cheered in delight. I bought 4 large meat buns, but they refused to eat them, insisting on bringing them home to eat with the food I cooked. We bought enough supplies and the whole family hired an ox cart going the same way to slowly return. Back home, I stewed the chicken. When it was about to be served, I sprinkled in some wild vegetables and cooked a bowl of soup to eat with the large meat buns. The whole family ate with immense satisfaction. When Nathan was ill, the government school sent a letter to inquire. I did not know how to write with a brush, so I asked someone to write a reply, saying that he would return to continue his studies once he recovered. Now it was time to go. Although Nathan was reluctant to leave, he knew what was important. The imperial court encouraged the examinations. Passing the scholar exam allowed entry into the government school with 1 day off each month to visit home. The government school waived all tuition fees and even issued a stipend of 1,000 copper coins per month to students. One only needed to buy their own paper and brushes. Previously, Nathan always lived frugally to send money home. But unfortunately, His 2 previous wives did not know how to manage it. I packed his luggage, adding some silver. I knew he would not spend it, but I just hoped he would not be in need. 2 days later, Nathan followed the cart into the city. With Nathan no longer teaching the children, Marcus's schooling had to be arranged soon. He was still young and could only study at the private school in the village. The private school was opened by an old scholar who had failed the exams. The tuition was not much, mainly just to earn a living. I went up the mountain a few more times, hunted some small animals, and brought 3 dough of rice to give to the old scholar. He immediately accepted Marcus as a student. In my free time, I led little Daniel to train his body every day. I could not teach the content of the military exams, but for physical training and martial arts basics, I was second to none. Little Daniel was extremely interested in learning martial arts. The boy was over 3 years old. His movements were standard, and he never complained, even when tired. He truly was a good foundation for martial arts practice. The book said that when little Daniel grew up, his strength would be astonishing, capable of lifting a rock weighing 30 jin with one hand. In the future, passing the military exam would likely not be difficult. I had also planned out how to earn money. In fact, right from the moment I arrived in this world, I had been thinking about this constantly. Thinking about it over and over, I still found it difficult. The book only mentioned in passing about business in a certain year, where the price of silk skyrocketed like crazy. But we had no capital and no backing. Opening a shop was clearly extremely difficult, so we could only do well with the tasks at hand first. I spent a few days building a chicken coop in the yard. While I was holding bamboo strips to build the coop, little Daniel, practicing his footwork, asked curiously, "Mother, what are you doing building a chicken coop?" "We will raise a few chickens so you can eat eggs." Little Daniel obediently shook his head. "I won't eat them. Keep them to sell for money." Once the chicken coop was finished, I went down to the town to buy some chicks to bring back. There was plenty of bran discarded by farmers, and our house had some available, which was just right for feeding chickens. I still often went into the mountains. Summer had arrived, the time when the forest was at its most lush. Trees were dense, and animals often came out to forage. I usually caught a few small animals, and quite a few types of medicinal herbs that grew in summer could also be gathered. I took them to Dr. Chen's house to exchange for money a few times, and he was very satisfied. I went deeper into the mountains than others and gathered rare medicinal herbs. After he processed them, he sold them to the pharmacy in town, making a decent profit. One day, I left little Daniel at a neighbor's house and went into the mountains. When I returned, I saw a few people gathering in front of my door. Little Daniel was also there, squatting on the ground, hugging his knees and sobbing. I ran a few steps, threw down the bamboo basket, and called out loudly, "Daniel." Little Daniel looked up and saw me. He hurriedly wiped his tears and rushed towards me, throwing himself into my arms and bursting into loud cries. "Mother, he bullied me. Daniel, do not be afraid. Mother is here." I held my son tight and looked up in the direction he pointed. That person was being surrounded by angry villagers, his face full of arrogance. My heart sank. It was Rogue Liu from the village. This guy was over 40 years old, had no wife or children, no decent job, refused to farm his land, and often sneaked into other people's houses to steal things. I understood this type of person well. They only knew how to bully the weak. If I did not make him afraid, he would never stop. The neighbor who helped me watch little Daniel recounted the whole story. Every time I went into the mountain, I gave them 2 copper coins to ask them to look after the boy. This time, little Daniel had been playing at their house for less than 2 hours when he started missing me. So he sat in front of their door playing with pebbles while waiting. After playing for a while, he caught Rogue Liu stealing a rabbit from our house. Before little Daniel could scream, his mouth was covered and he was dragged back into our house. Rogue Liu knew Nathan was studying far away and that I was just a woman with nothing to fear. So he intended to force little Daniel to reveal where the silver was hidden in the house. Unexpectedly, although the boy was small, he was very tough. Rogue Liu got angry and was about to beat him. Fortunately, the neighbor discovered the boy was no longer sitting outside the door and ran over to look, saving him just in time. I expressed my thanks and left little Daniel at their house. I did not say anything more, turned back into the house, took a sash, and threw it over the roof beam, speaking clearly. Today, I, Elena Ming, resolve to end it here. Life is already hard, and now Rogue Liu comes to rob and oppress us. I am unwilling to accept this death, but I am forced into a dead end. I hope after I die, the village chief will give me justice. Everyone was panicking, competing to persuade me. Nathan's wife, do not think foolishly. It is not worth it for a person like Rogue Liu. Just chasing him away is enough. What good will it do if you act this way? That is right. Once your husband passes the exam, the hard days will be over. I hung the rope up and said coldly, then wait for him to pass the exam and deal with that scum. Consider it avenging me. Although I was as hard as a rock, the villagers were anxious and forced Rogue Liu to kneel in the middle of the yard. Rogue Liu, you caused this. What do you intend to do? Someone shouted. Rogue Liu did not expect I would dare to do it for real. His face turned pale and he stammered, Big sister, please spare me. Do not do anything foolish. I will return what I took from your house. I swear I will not dare to come to your house again. I did not believe his words one bit. Fear was not yet true fear. Someone asked loudly, where is the village chief? Why hasn't he arrived? He is here. He is here. As soon as the answer ended, the village chief appeared, running into the yard, panting, his face stern. Come down quickly. Let me handle it. I just looked at him silently. He angrily kicked Rogue Liu a few times, spat, ground his teeth, and ordered him to be taken to the magistrate's office. A thick-skinned troublemaker like this had to be punished. My goal was achieved. Rogue Liu was tied up, taken to a house, and locked up tightly, waiting to be handed over to the magistrate tomorrow. He lowered his head, daring not to argue, but his eyes still held lingering resentment. Fine, the matter did not end here. Night fell. After soothing the two children to sleep, I locked the door carefully and sneaked out to his house. Rogue Liu was not asleep yet, still cursing and threatening that he would make the village chief and me pay the price, threatening to punish Marcus and little Daniel. The anger in my chest burned like fire. I could not control myself and burst through the window. He widened his eyes when he saw my presence in the dark. It is you. So you still dare to come? He was just about to rush forward when I kicked him straight into the wall. He was dizzy and let out a cry of pain. I stepped forward, step by step, not hurriedly, but decisively, grabbed him, and continuously struck his face. He groaned under the blows. Why are you doing this? It was just a few rabbits. Do you want to kill me? Before he finished speaking, a strong slap made his lip bleed. A tooth flew out of his mouth and rolled on the floor. A look of true fear flashed in his eyes as humiliation showed clearly on his face. He knelt down, trembling and begging. Please spare me. Stop hitting. But I did not think it was enough. I had not forgotten the look of resentment during the day. I wanted to let him know what true fear was. I grabbed his hand and pulled out a small knife, the cold blade flashing in the night. He shrank back like a trembling dog, daring not to move. I smiled coldly and brought the knife down. A sharp sound echoed. He roared a scream when a finger was severed. At that moment, his eyes looked as if he had seen a demon. There were no more threats, only pure terror. He screamed and then fainted on the ground. If there is a next time, I said coldly, I will cut off all your fingers. He shrank back, crying and wailing. I dare not do it again. I dare not. I hid in the darkness and returned home, gently climbing over the courtyard wall, but I quickly froze. The main hall door was open. Marcus was leaning against the door frame, dozing off. My landing was very quiet, yet it still woke him up, showing how worried this child was in his heart. He startled, jumped up, and rushed towards me. I hurriedly caught him. Why haven't you slept yet? I knew Mother went out. Mother went to do something dangerous, right? This child understood things early. I sighed and decided to tell the truth, hoping he would not be afraid. Mother went to beat Rogue Liu and cut off one of his fingers. I observed his reaction, but Marcus just waved his hand and said, Mother, do not worry. I am not afraid. I just feel you are truly wronged. You have suffered enough for the whole family. Yet when meeting bad people, you still have to be careful, afraid of implicating father's reputation and mine, so you can only secretly resolve it. I asked, do you not blame mother for leaving little Daniel at the neighbor's house? He sighed like an adult. Mother did it for the family's food and clothing and was forced to do so. Otherwise, why would mother suffer so much hardship? It is we who burden you. I smiled. We are a family. How can you say it is a burden? He said solemnly, the burden is real. Mother does not despise us. That is because mother is virtuous. Mother, rest assured. I will grow up quickly so that mother, father, and little brother can all live better days. The future corrupt official who would dominate the court now had such an innocent, childish side. Although the book did not clearly describe what he went through, I could imagine the life of a child without parents. He had struggled at the bottom of society, and thanks to a stroke of luck, he met the county magistrate's help. From there, flattering those above and trampling those below, he rose like a kite in the wind, becoming a powerful official of a generation and a confidant of the old emperor. But he knew well that he was only a temporary favorite. When he had power, he formed factions, was greedy for wealth, wasted money without limit, and even supported pirates. His reputation was hated by everyone. Children would cry just hearing his name. The new emperor who succeeded the throne was a righteous person who detested extremely corrupt officials like him. So much so that before even stabilizing the throne, he immediately sent people to arrest him. In the end, he was sentenced to extreme torture, torn apart until dead. Marcus and Daniel were originally not bad people. They clearly distinguished right from wrong. That they became villains in the book was all because circumstances forced them step by step. Now that I was here, I would definitely not let them become the disasters in the story. Not only for my own life, but also because I truly could not bear to watch those two children walk that path. Rogue Liu was truly frightened. The next day, he was quietly taken to the magistrate's office. Someone asked why his whole body was bruised. He did not dare to speak, only saying that a thief broke into his house and beat him up. The book mentioned that in the 10th year of the new reign, a heavy rain in Birch Village caused an ancient tomb to collapse. At that time, Marcus was wandering nearby, luckily escaped death, and picked up quite a few antiques. He knew those things could not be discovered by others, so he hid them under the floor of the house, only bringing them out as capital for business when he met the county magistrate's help. Now, it was exactly the end of the 6th month in the 10th year of the new reign. We had just finished harvesting the wheat and settled the accounts for the first half of the year. The person helping us with the farm work was an honest old farmer who was very skilled at farming. He took a few coins, smoking his pipe, and asked, "Mrs. Shaw, what do you want to plant for the next season?" I had already calculated it. Turnips. The rainy season is coming soon. Planting turnips is appropriate. When the rain passes, it will be just the right time for harvest. Sure enough, just a few days after drying the wheat at home, the rain began to fall heavily. We managed to dry it just in time, while many other families had not harvested yet. I could only secretly praise the old farmer for his truly accurate judgment. I could not go up the mountain anymore, so I stayed home to practice footwork with little Daniel. During practice, I suddenly remembered the ancient tomb. Villagers were talking about the unusual rain this year. The heavy rain mentioned in the book must be this one. After several sunny days, suddenly one day it rained as if pouring water. The teacher at the private school had instructed that if there was heavy rain, there was no need to come to class and students could review at home. So Marcus did not go. Early in the morning, I prepared food for the whole day. I told Marcus that no matter who knocked, he should not open the door and should wait at home for mother to return. Little Daniel clung to my clothes and would not let go. "Mother, where are you going?" Marcus looked out at the pouring rain and asked worriedly, "Mother, the rain is so heavy. Is there something that cannot wait until the rain stops?" I shook my head. I did not know the exact location where Marcus once picked up the treasures. I had to go there to find out. If I waited for the rain to stop, I might not only miss the opportunity, but also risk encountering others who might reveal my tracks. "Wait for mother to come back," I said firmly. "Remember carefully, if anyone knocks, absolutely do not say mother is not home." Just say mother is sick and needs to rest. Little Daniel did not understand yet, but Marcus knew he could not persuade me, so he obediently coaxed his younger brother inside to practice writing. I put on a straw raincoat, carried a bamboo basket, and went to the place mentioned in the book. Along the way, I did not meet a single soul, and soon I arrived. It was halfway up a mountain, not the one I usually went to gather medicine. The book said the ancient tomb was located on the eastern slope. I searched for a very long time, but still did not see any traces resembling an ancient tomb. So I chose a place with dense trees to take shelter from the rain. The rain was heavy and the wind was cold. The original owner's body was inherently strong, yet I was still shivering. I really did not know how Marcus managed to endure with that small body in those years. I listened to the sound of the rain, counting the time passing. 1 hour later, mud and water rushed down from the mountain like the mudslides I had seen in news reports in my previous life, only not to the point of total destruction. I hurriedly climbed a large tree to avoid it. Another hour passed before the sound of the rain gradually lessened. I patiently waited for another 4 hours. By the time my legs were numb, the rain had stopped for a long time, and the mountain had returned to silence with only a few streams of mud flowing slowly. I climbed down and waded through the mud and water to search. It was not until late afternoon that I found a few antiques and an exquisite piece of ancient jade, a luminous pearl the size of a fist, and a tightly sealed box. Not knowing what was inside, I took them all. Along the way, there were also several large round shiny pearls which I also put into the basket. The book did not describe it clearly. Perhaps the tomb was located higher up, and these things were washed down by the water. When I got home, I hurriedly changed my clothes and dried my hair. Marcus was still sitting in the hall waiting, patient since I left. Hearing me briefly recount what happened, he asked joyfully, "Can we sell them for a lot of money, mother? Will mother not have to work hard anymore in the future?" I felt truly warm in my heart and said, "We do not need it for now. Wait until your father passes the provincial examination, then we will decide. Even if we have money now, we cannot keep it. Moreover, in this region there is no pawn shop that keeps its word." The heavy rain passed, the sky cleared completely, and the winter fields resounded with turnips. Time flew by. In the meantime, Nathan returned home for a visit and promised to return after the new year. Next year was the provincial examination and he had to devote himself to studying. By autumn, our turnip crop was a huge success. Most of it was taken to the market to sell, giving the family some extra money. We kept a few plants for fresh vegetables, and I pickled the rest to eat gradually. The chickens we raised also mostly survived and grew quickly. Everything seemed to be progressing well. But in recent days, I noticed Marcus was acting differently. Although he tried to appear happy every day he came home, I could still sense the gloom in his heart. That evening after dinner, I brought clothes into the room for him and little Daniel to change. Marcus was intelligent. Knowing what I would ask, he took the initiative to speak. "The village chief's nephew does not like me. Is it because you study well?" In the same village, although the village chief's family situation was better, it was not much better than ours. Family background was not the issue. On the contrary, Marcus had revealed amazing talent at the private school, easily causing envy in others. "You are right. But he only isolates me. He does not hit me. It is just that I am very unhappy. You want to fit in with them, right? At least not to be isolated." Marcus nodded. "Good. Wanting to fit in is a good thing. I also hope you have a few sincere friends. Do you want mother to help?" He nodded again. "Please teach me how, mother. But do not intervene directly." My sensitive son finally knew to rely on his family. The next day, I got up early to go to the kitchen. Nathan took the rabbit meat I cooked to school. When he returned in the evening, he looked full of confidence, so I did not ask more. I had saved some silver, and after deducting household expenses, there was still a surplus, so I bought 2 more acres of land. Currently, the land was still being cultivated, so I had to wait until after the new year for it to officially count as mine. Thus, the family had a total of 5 acres of land. Near the end of the year, Marcus brought a few children home, including the village chief's nephew. I made some snacks and the children played in the main hall until evening before being called home. After eating, Marcus said happily, "Mother, I followed your instructions. Every 7 days, I bring some delicious food you cooked and only share it with those close to me." They craved it and gradually came closer. 2 weeks later, someone came to ask and I gave it to them all. He handed me and little Daniel a few pieces, his eyes shining with excitement. "This method is really good. I thought no one liked me and didn't know how to behave. It turns out I was just using the wrong method." I encouraged him. "I see you are sincere every day. You are a lovable child, but not everyone has to like a person. If this time didn't work, what would you do?" "I would stop caring. If they do not like me, someone else will. Also, if they hate me because of my knowledge, I will use my knowledge to defeat them. People are only jealous of those who are slightly better than them, but not out of reach. Have you ever seen a student jealous of the top scholar?" Marcus thought for a moment, then his eyes lit up. "So I just need to be so good that they cannot catch up, and they will no longer hate me, but will respect me." A few years later, I made a new set of cotton clothes for each of the 2 children, and I asked someone to deliver Nathan's set to him. Although it cost a bit of silver, these were things that could not be skimped on. Nathan had to take exams and could not endure the cold. And the children's old cotton clothes were so short they could hardly cover their bodies. Only this body, which previously knew how to care for itself, had made 2 sets of cotton clothes that were still warm to wear. Marcus was released from school early. He supervised his younger brother's writing practice and physical training while helping me prepare for the new year. Just as Nathan returned, we were stuffing a small jar in the yard with rabbit meat, wild chicken, and badger meat that I had marinated along with the pork bought yesterday. Only vegetables were scarce, with just a few cabbages and some potatoes left in the cellar. Nathan stood outside the door for quite a long time before we discovered him. Little Daniel cheered and ran over, being hugged tightly in his arms. He rubbed Marcus's head and said, "Everyone is stronger. Daniel is even sturdier than before." Little Daniel struggled down to the ground and performed a martial arts routine, his posture looking quite proper. Nathan watched with emotion, praised a few sentences, then bowed to me. "Wife, you have worked hard." Marcus led his younger brother quietly back to their room, leaving space for me and him to be close. Nathan held my hand and walked into the hall, speaking earnestly. "In the letters, Marcus told me everything about the house. You did very well. I cannot compare to you. During the time he was away, I persisted in practicing writing. So I brought it out and said, 'I am your wife and the mother of the children. Naturally, I must do my best.' Every day, Marcus teaches me to recognize characters. Although I haven't learned them all, it is enough to write letters. In the future, I will also write letters to you." Nathan was extremely overjoyed. Then, as if suddenly remembering something, he took a money pouch from his luggage and placed it in my hand. "I saved a little at the academy. And before the new year, someone asked me to write couplets, so I earned a decent amount. You keep it." I opened the pouch to look. It was all silver, adding up to nearly 2 taels. That night, I brought out the items I picked up during the heavy rain for him to see. He hugged me, constantly saying it was dangerous, and made me promise never to do it again before examining each item carefully. I had not opened that wooden box yet. Nathan also instructed me to keep it safe, as it might be useful later. Even the string of pearls I picked up could not be sold easily. Nathan had seen that type of pearl in town. Just one pearl cost 30 silver taels, equal to 2 years of living expenses for a commoner family. Since his return, I have become much freer. He fought to do the housework and the 2 children followed suit. I rested for a few days and then looked for an acquaintance to buy 2 more acres of land. So our family had 7 acres of land. I thought very clearly. With my current status, doing business was difficult. Nathan was a scholar exempt from land tax and grain tax, so it was better to buy more land and rely on the harvest to earn some silver. At least we would not go hungry or cold. The old farmer introduced me to an experienced farm hand. After discussing everything, it was New Year's Eve. I cooked a sumptuous New Year's dinner, and the whole family gathered together. Nathan told stories about the outside world. Little Daniel ate until his hands were covered in grease. Marcus scolded his younger brother in a low voice, but there was still a smile on his face. In my previous life, although I lived brilliantly, I was lonely all my life. Now entering a book and living ordinary days, yet having a home, such a life was also very good. After the new year, Nathan reluctantly left. Before leaving, I instructed him, "The letters I write to you absolutely do not let anyone else see." He was a bit confused, but still nodded in agreement. I understood his character. Once he promised, he would definitely do it. I had read his essays. His knowledge was not bad, but he had not passed yet, partly because his accumulation was insufficient and partly because his vision was still narrow. His writing style was sometimes rigid. I started writing letters to him. In every letter, the first page told stories about home. And on the second page, I told him stories. I told him how magnificent the great mountains and rivers were, and what the customs of the people at the foot of the mountains were like. I told him about the serious consequences of floods. Based on what I had seen and heard in my previous life, I proposed a few flood control measures. I also talked to him about the differences between various philosophies. When he wrote back, he said he had incorporated what I told him into his essays and was praised by his teacher for making remarkable progress. Later in every letter, he said he had gained new insights, and the more he thought, the more he felt he used to be like a frog in a well. In fact, how could I remember so much? I just wrote down what I remembered, the things I had experienced, and bought a few books he had never read, studied them, and copied them down. How much he understood depended on his own comprehension. I only hoped he would pass. Only when he passed would our lives be better. That year, when he left, he took enough silver and did not return for a long time. I asked someone to send him some items for the autumn exam. He only sent back a letter and then hurriedly set off. In the letter, he said his teacher assured him he would definitely pass this time. 2 months later, the lively sound of gongs and drums suddenly rang out outside. Before I could lead little Daniel out the door, someone ran in with a beaming face. Nathan's wife, "Come out quickly. Nathan has passed." I also smiled. "Thank you. Thank you." The village chief brought the officials over. As soon as he saw me, he smiled until wrinkles appeared all over his face. With Nathan passing the exam, he also gained prestige, especially since not a single person in the whole county might pass the scholar exam in each session, and Birch Village had not had anyone pass in over 50 years. Nathan's wife, "Congratulations. Congratulations." The official also came to announce the good news. "Congratulations. The family now has a scholar." I smiled and expressed my thanks, casually stuffing a prepared red envelope into the official's hand. His smile became even more genuine. After the official left, people coming to congratulate the family formed an endless line. I made tea to receive guests, smiling until my facial muscles stiffened. The villagers were all good people. With a scholar in the village, even the magistrate's office spoke more politely. And for our family, it was even more significant. Nathan's status as a scholar became a shield for the whole family. People like Rogue Liu would not dare to mess with me, even if their lives depended on it. Marcus was given the morning off. Young as he was, he knew how to suppress his joy and helped me welcome guests. Only in the evening, when the guests had left, did he ask me happily, "Mother, did father really pass?" I pinched his nose. "Of course it is real." Marcus turned away shyly. "I am grown up. Do not do that anymore." Little Daniel was still small and did not understand why his brother and I were so happy. Seeing everyone happy, he also laughed and poked his brother's cheek, saying, "Big brother is shy." I laughed until I could not stop smiling. The next day, Marcus got up early to go to the private school, but as soon as he opened the door, he closed it with a cold face and came back. I roughly guessed what happened, so I told him to come into the house. Marcus was still uneasy, calling me, "Mother. Go get your brother." I replied, "Today, Mother has to play the role of a fierce woman with power." Marcus could not help but laugh, but very quickly became serious and worried as he walked into the house. When Marcus closed the door, the people outside pushed a few times but could not get in. So they stood outside calling, "Marcus, Daniel, it is your grandmother and uncle." I grabbed a stick that fit my hand perfectly and pulled the door open with a jerk. "What are you strangers doing in front of my house?" I asked through gritted teeth. Madame Liu put on a smile, pointing to the cart full of rice and grain, saying, "Why call us strangers? I am the children's grandmother. I heard Nathan passed, so I came to congratulate." She intended to rush in. I blocked the door with my stick, speaking fiercely. "You have severed ties with us. Anyone who dares to enter my house to steal today must ask the stick in my hand first." Madame Liu shrank her neck and looked at the middle-aged man beside her. He was Marcus's uncle, Liu Yong, also known as Rice Bucket Liu. What was said back then was a bit too much. Broken bones are still connected by tendons. "How can you say cut is cut?" he grumbled. I tapped the stick at his feet. He sat down in fear and begged, "It is cut. It is cut. The mother and children severed relations, but I didn't. It was your own mother who represented the whole family to sever ties with my family." As I spoke, the noise caused neighbors to come out and watch. Everyone saw the incident clearly. The village chief arrived with a frown and ordered them to be tied up and taken back to the village head for handling, saying that if they caused trouble at the house of the village scholar again, they would be tied up and taken to the magistrate. Madame Liu and Liu Yong shook all over. I exhaled gently. It seemed they would not dare to come again for the time being. A few days later, I received a letter from Nathan. In the letter, he said an examiner valued his essays very highly and took him as a student, allowing him a month's leave, after which arrangements would be made for him to enter the capital to continue his studies. I knew his passing the scholar exam was somewhat forced, but that examiner was the current Grand Scholar. If he could follow the Grand Scholar to broaden his horizons, his essays would surely gain more depth when he participated in the provincial examination 3 years later. Passing the Imperial Scholar exam would not be difficult. Not many days after receiving the letter, Nathan arrived home. As soon as he entered the door, he bowed to me. "Wife, you truly have great talent." I smiled and brought out the books I had bought for him to see, only saying that I read it in there. He did not suspect anything, only constantly sighing with emotion. It turns out not only the books of the sages are worth reading. If not for your reminder, wife, I would not have known my vision was so narrow. I laughed softly and encouraged him. Knowing it is narrow means you can correct it. My wife's words are wise. I plan to travel everywhere after studying for a year. The teacher also agreed. "What do you think, wife?" Naturally, I agree very much. He looked happy, then blushed and whispered, "Can you come to the capital with me, wife?" I nodded in agreement. Now that he was a scholar, the antiques I picked up earlier could also be sold. Establishing a foothold in the capital was not difficult. Moreover, the children also needed a better place to study. I brought out the antiques. I would take a few pearls to town tomorrow to exchange for silver, while the ancient jade and luminous pearls would be kept for use in the capital. Only that box remains. I had never opened it. I said, "Open it. If it is suitable, give it to your teacher." Nathan was not an ordinary rigid scholar. He knew well that he had nothing in hand. The only thing he could offer his teacher was perhaps the item in this box, so he nodded in agreement. I opened the lid. Inside was a long object wrapped in many layers of waterproof cloth. The technique was very professional. I did not know how many years it had been through, but despite some damage here and there, it was still intact. Layer by layer was opened. Inside was a rolled-up painting. Nathan carefully spread it out. Before our eyes was a landscape painting. The brushstrokes were broad, the artistic conception natural, and it was preserved almost perfectly. My teacher likes landscape paintings very much. I have never heard the name on this seal, but the teacher knows I am poor. Even if it is not a famous painting, he will not blame me. In the end, it is the heart that counts. Nathan carefully packed everything away, hid it in a secret compartment under the bed, then leaned close to me, his ears turning red, and whispered, "Wife, the spring night is short. Let us go to rest." Nathan stayed at home for a month and then set off. 5 pearls exchanged for 150 taels of silver. I kept 50 taels and sent him 100 taels along with the painting of unknown origin. I still had many things to handle, so I stayed behind, planning to go to the capital with the children at the end of the year. I used all 50 taels to buy land and asked the old farmer to find someone to look after it. The chickens in the house were all sold and the remaining preserved vegetables were given away. Nathan wrote a letter saying, "That painting belongs to a little-known painter from the previous dynasty. He once had a very famous landscape painting, but it was later lost. The one we found is that very painting." The grand scholar greatly admired that painter but regretted never seeing an authentic work. Unexpectedly, heaven granted him a real one, and it was the most famous one at that. The old grand scholar had someone appraise it and confirmed it was real, so he immediately gave Nathan a 2-courtyard house. Nathan dared not accept. The old grand scholar's face darkened, saying, "This authentic work is worth even 10 houses." So he finally dared to accept. The old grand scholar also asked about the origin of the painting. Nathan honestly recounted the story. The grand scholar immediately said he would send someone to pick up me and the children to the capital. Nathan had been worried about our safety on the road, so hearing this, he bowed deeply in gratitude. Unexpectedly, a painting solved the housing problem for us when we arrived in the capital. I knew the people sent to pick us up were likely arriving soon. A few days later, we took a carriage to the capital. The 2 children had never traveled far. Along the way, they found everything new, but still obediently kept their manners. Whenever we encountered new food or strange customs, I let them try or stop to watch to broaden their knowledge. However, just as we were about to enter the capital, an incident occurred. Marcus met the person who would become his lifelong enemy. Charles Cheen was 7 years old at the time. Charles Cheen came from a noble family, was extremely talented, and had been serious since childhood. He inherently looked down on sycophantic officials like Marcus. Even at the execution, he was present. When I met Charles Cheen, it was coincidentally during a lantern festival in a small town. There was a lantern riddle guessing activity with separate riddles prepared for children, and the prize was a small inkstone. I discussed it with the Grand Scholars people and with their agreement, I encouraged Marcus to participate. He was very good, guessing half without a single mistake. But right at that moment, Charles Cheen rode past from somewhere and also stopped to participate. His answers flowed fluently and soon he caught up with Marcus. Marcus looked at me. I nodded, signaling him not to panic. He took a deep breath and continued writing answers. The 2 children, one after another, guessed all the riddles correctly. Each received an inkstone. Charles Cheen just gave a snort and walked away. Marcus had just received the first inkstone in his life. Before he could rejoice, his face darkened. I held his hand. "Let us go. Get in the carriage." He was still depressed, casually placing the inkstone aside without caring. I looked sternly at Marcus. "Marcus Shaw." It was the first time I called him by his full name. He was scared, knowing I was about to discipline him. Before hearing me speak, he pursed his lips, tears welling up. Little Daniel did not understand what was happening and reached out to wipe his brother's tears. But Marcus turned his face away, not wanting his brother to see him cry. I said, "If you keep caring about others' eyes, then all I taught you before is wasted. That boy just snorted once, and you immediately stopped cherishing your own efforts. If he mocks you or even takes action, do you plan to starve yourself to show me? People are not born equal. Some are rich, some are poor, some have high power, some live at the bottom. Once in the capital, you will suffer even more slights. Do you intend to take offense every time? Can you handle it? Now he looks down on you. What you need to do is to one day become someone others dare not look down on, not sit there resenting. That is what is truly despicable." Marcus cried in shame. "Mother, Marcus knows he was wrong." I hugged him and little Daniel, speaking gently. "People who look down on you do so because they lack cultivation. Do you know that true great scholars never despise anyone because of their humble origin? Moreover, just because people think you are inferior doesn't mean you really are. Marcus is someone who will pass the scholar exam like your father." Marcus wiped his tears. "I know, Mother. I must not let others affect my mind." I nodded, affirming. "You are still young. Being influenced is normal, but Mother believes you will overcome it. Remember, if anything happens, tell your parents. Do not hide it in your heart. Marcus leaned into my arms and whispered, "Thank you, Mother." Little Daniel understood about half, but also raised his fist to guarantee, "Daniel will also pass the military top scholar exam in the future." I pinched his nose, feeling both amused and concerned. The road was still long, and the children were still immature and easily influenced. Fortunately, I was still here and could recognize it in time to lead them on the right path. Just as our carriage reached the city gate, I saw Nathan standing there from afar, waving his hand. When the carriage got close, he stepped onto it. The two children immediately threw themselves into their father's arms. Marcus's eyes were red and the tip of his nose was also red. Clearly, he had just cried. Nathan immediately asked, "What is wrong?" Marcus blushed and recounted everything. Nathan listened attentively, then turned to me and said, "It has really been hard on you, wife. As a father, I am away all year round and do not even know the struggles in my child's heart." Then he looked down at his son. "Your mother's words are very true. The capital gathers all kinds of nobles and our status is not very prominent. When I first became a student, there were quite a few people speaking ill of me to my face. For some things, I can defend myself. For others, I cannot, so I just pretend not to hear. If I kept everything in my heart, how would I have the mind to study? Now I do not care." They got bored of talking, so naturally they talked less. If one day I achieved something, are those people worth arguing with? Hearing this, a thoughtful look appeared in Marcus's eyes. I knew this time he had truly taken the lesson to heart. The next day, our whole family changed into new clothes, made ready for the visit to the Grand Scholar's residence. Although the old madam was used to being pampered, her face was gentle and her eyes kind. Of the two children, one knew how to behave from a young age, and the other did not understand much, but neither showed fear. The old madam praised them. The servants had already reported the incident on the road. She said, "The children were taught very well, and you are dignified." Nathan was truly fortunate. I hurriedly replied, "I dare not accept." "You are generous and wise." The old madam spoke, then removed a gold bracelet from her wrist and put it on mine. "This is an item I loved when I was young. Now that I am old, it no longer suits me. This bright color should belong to young people like you." I hurriedly thanked her. The old madam then took out 2 silk pouches and gave one to each child. Both dared not accept and turned to look at me. I nodded slightly, and they obediently accepted, their small mouths saying in unison, "Thank you." The old madam looked at us with even more satisfaction. It was not until evening when we returned home that I discovered that inside each silk pouch were several small golden ingots. I could not help but sigh with emotion. Perhaps this was the benefactor I had been hoping to meet. Whether it was the gold bracelet given to me or the golden ingots in the children's pouches, the old madam had delicately considered our circumstances. Marcus and little Daniel were both arranged by the Grand Scholar to attend the clan school in the residence to learn. Every day, little Daniel got up very early to practice martial arts with me before going to school. Wait a few more years when his body is sturdier, I will invite a good master to teach him horseback riding, archery, wrestling, and spear skills. Suddenly, one day, Marcus also joined our early morning martial arts practice. Later, Nathan followed suit. Teaching one person is teaching. Teaching 4 is the same. I taught everyone physical training and they all focused on it. No one dared to be lazy. During that time, I disguised myself as a man and went alone to the pawn shop recorded in the book to pawn the ancient jade and luminous pearl. Nathan intended to go in my place, but his ability to improvise was still limited, and his eyes were not calm enough. In the end, I had to go personally while he waited in the opposite tea house for me to return. I chose the permanent pawn option, no redemption, and exchanged them for 4,000 taels of white silver. From then on, the household prospered visibly. We ate well and dressed warmly. The faces of the father and sons became rosy and much healthier. Thinking of the future, I gritted my teeth and bought 5 servants, preparing a way out. The descendants of the Grand Scholar's family were all educated and knew etiquette. They treated Marcus and little Daniel without any discrimination. Whenever they gathered to play, they pulled my 2 children along. Thanks to that, My children gradually got to know many people and understood more about the rules and conduct in the capital. However, the social circle in the capital was inherently small, and Marcus eventually bumped into Charles Cheen. Perhaps out of respect for the grand scholar, Charles Cheen was not bad to the two brothers, even taking the initiative to apologize for his rudeness the previous year. Marcus did not hold a grudge, just smiled and told me about it in the evening. "Mother, did I do right?" I nodded. "You did right. But if one day Charles Cheen changes, what will you do?" He thought for a moment and replied, "Son thinks if the other party is sinister, I will stay away to avoid trouble. But if he is an upright person and reason is on my side, I will speak with reason. If he stubbornly oppresses me, I will view him as a stone by the roadside, not worth bothering with." I laughed and hugged my son. My son has truly grown up. The following year, Nathan left the capital for a study tour. Wherever he went, he sent letters home recounting the scenery, people, and interesting stories along the way. In every letter, he wrote very meticulously, saying that I had not traveled far, so he wanted to use words to paint for me the things he saw. But I just smiled because in my previous life, I had seen much more than that. Every letter also included a few words of instruction for the two children to be generous and kind, but not too weak. His every word was more mature than before, showing a man who had seen through life. As for me, relying on the backing of the Grand Scholar's residence, I planned to open a shop. I hired an experienced manager and seized the opportunity to hoard goods when the price of silk was still low. Before long, when prices skyrocketed, my Shaw Silk Emporium became a famous fabric shop in the capital. I planned to open another shop and bought a few more pieces of land, accumulating bit by bit for the family's future. Time flew by. Marcus passed the scholar exam and returned to his hometown with a calmer and more confident demeanor than before. Before the door of our house in the capital, the sound of gongs and drums rang out joyfully again. Nathan passed the imperial examination as a second-class scholar. The good news had not yet settled when another happy event occurred in our house. I was pregnant. After living in this world for so many years with a flat stomach, I once thought that perhaps my outsider status caused my body to be rejected, unable to conceive. Unexpectedly, fate was not cut off. It just arrived a little late. Nathan was overjoyed beyond measure. Before he could even calm down, he had names ready. If it was a boy, he would be Leon Shaw. If it was a girl, she would be Jade Shaw. I just smiled, watching him circle the round table, muttering those two names endlessly. Marcus immediately assumed the role of a little teacher, saying he would teach his siblings to read, while little Daniel patted his chest, guaranteeing he would teach them martial arts. This boy was 9 years old, his body solid and taller than his peers. At a glance, one could see the makings of a handsome youth. Nathan and I were discussing finding a martial arts master for him when he went out and found a teacher for himself. That day, he went to buy roast duck for me and accidentally met General Lee in plain clothes at the restaurant. Some thugs were causing trouble. Little Daniel saw the injustice and did not sit still. The boy rushed out, knocked down 2 thugs, and the general's guards captured the rest. General Lee saw a child who was brave and had solid skills, so he laughed and asked, "Little kid, are you not afraid of bandits?" Little Daniel replied clearly, "I am not afraid. Robbers are petty people. Those with ambition should despise them. In the future, I want to take the military examination. How can I fear such people?" Childish words, but with spirit reaching the sky, made General Lee laugh out loud in the middle of the restaurant. That night, he sent someone to our house to ask if Nathan and I were willing to entrust the child to him for training. Naturally, Nathan and I gladly agreed. My second son this time had nothing to do with bandits. Instead, he was personally accepted by a general. In the future, he would definitely be a man who held up the sky and stood firm on the ground. Then, the day of birth arrived. 2 immature cries rang out. The Dragon Phoenix twins were born smoothly. Outside, hearing the news of the Dragon Phoenix twins, Nathan was so happy he asked the midwife several times, "Really? Is it really 1 boy and 1 girl? I have 2 more children and even a little girl." After the 2 children and I were cleaned up, he rushed in, his face beaming like never before. "Wife, are you still in pain?" I shook my head slightly, my fingers gently touching the soft faces of the two babies. They had their eyes closed tight, sleeping soundly like two little angels in a dream. Nathan bent down to look at one, then the other, unable to look away no matter what. "Wife," he whispered, his voice trembling, "we have 2 more children. You have suffered." Just then, Marcus's clear and excited voice rang out from outside. "Father, Mother, Marcus and Daniel are back." I gently pushed Nathan and said softly, "Let them see their brother and sister." He smiled, nodded once, and walked out. Before long, excited cheers rang out. "It is 2. I have another younger brother and a younger sister." Then came Daniel's joyful voice. "Father, can I hold my little sister?" Hearing that, I smiled slightly, closed my eyes, my heart full of peace, and drifted into sleep. A few days later, Nathan received orders to set off for a county to take up his post. The house now had 4 children. The 2 older ones had to study and train, and the 2 younger ones needed care, so I stayed in the capital. Although there were many servants in the residence, I kept the habit of looking after the children myself, unwilling to hand them over completely to others. Marcus and Daniel loved the 2 little ones, Leon and Jade. Every day after school, they would come to play with them, helping me care for and comfort them. Time passed quickly. Leon and Jade turned 6, and Nathan had been promoted to the 5th rank. That day, the news of the new graduates just reached the residence when Marcus returned with Charles Cheen and a few friends. As soon as I stepped out, I saw Charles Cheen patting his shoulder, laughing. "I let you win again. Next time, I will definitely win it back." Marcus laughed in response. "You still want to retake the exam?" The group burst into laughter, the atmosphere lively as spring. After the guests left, I led the 2 little ones out to congratulate him. Before I could say anything, Marcus knelt down abruptly. I was startled and tried to help him up, but he stopped me. "Mother, this is what I have always wanted to do, just waiting for today." After speaking, he bowed once. His voice choked. "What I say next may not be proper etiquette, but it comes from the heart. If not for Mother, Father, Daniel, and I would likely not have this day." He bowed a second time, his eyes moist. "Daniel and I do not remember our biological mother clearly. We only vaguely remember that when she was alive, she treated us worse than Uncle's children. It was Mother who revived Father. It was Mother who supported us through the days of hardship. I used to be gloomy and easily led astray. It was Mother who patiently taught me, helping me walk the right path." Finishing his words, he bowed his head a 3rd time, his voice sobbing. "Mother, thank you." Before I could speak, little Daniel ran in, evidently having heard everything, and knelt beside him. "Mother, me too." With those words, he also bowed 3 times firmly. Leon and Jade were startled. Each ran to one side, hurriedly helping their big brothers up. I sighed softly, but a quiet pride rose in my heart. The children I raised had finally grown up. The following year, Daniel passed as the martial arts top scholar. The Shaw family had 2 top scholars, and Nathan, the most modest among them, was also the head of the 2nd class. From then on, the reputation of the Shaw residence spread throughout the capital, and invitations to banquets and social gatherings were countless. Nathan inherently disliked ostentation, so he requested a transfer out. The place he chose was River Prefecture, which governed Birch Village, my old hometown. On the day of departure, the morning mist was like smoke, covering the roof tiles and steps with a thin layer. I told Leon and Jade stories about the old days in Birch Village. The 2 little ones listened with interest, asking questions endlessly. Nathan looked at us, his eyes gentle, and spoke softly. "Being with me in the capital for so many years, you have suffered many disadvantages." I smiled faintly. "What disadvantages?" "I was never a fragile noble girl. I like riding horses, sword dancing, and mountain winds more than rouge and powder. From the beginning, outsiders wondered why an orphan girl from the countryside understood things unsuitable for a normal girl. But he never asked and I never needed to explain because to me, the luxury of the capital was not equal to a piece of clear sky and the smell of warm earth in Birch Village." Nathan smiled and said, "When we arrive, you and the children can return home to stay for a while. I will arrange people to go with you." I nodded. Outside, The morning clouds gradually dispersed. The sky was crystal clear. At that moment, I suddenly felt that all the hardships over the years were just to exchange for this simple peace. True strength is the courage to embrace a broken family and rewrite their destiny with patience and wisdom. Elena proves that fate is not written in stone, but shaped by our daily choices to protect and nurture. Her journey reminds us that kindness is a powerful weapon capable of turning potential villains into heroes. She demonstrates that a woman's resilience can heal the deepest wounds, transforming a cold, hopeless house into a sanctuary of warmth, success, and everlasting happiness. Thank you for listening to this story. If you enjoyed this tale of redemption and family bonds, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another incredible story. Share this with someone who believes in second chances and the power of love to change lives. Leave a comment below telling us what part of Elena's journey touched your heart the most. Until next time, may you find the courage to rewrite your own story.